Welcome back to the Dungeon Master's Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game. With every conversation, we hope to inspire as many as possible to keep on Dungeon Mastering.
And I'm one of your hosts, DM Neal, aka Joke Maniac. And today we are back to our What Is series because I want to answer many more questions about what is. And today we're going to be answering the question, what is Cosmere RPG? We brought on two of the people that made it happen, and you'll learn more about them in our interview section. But before we get there, I do want to bring up the fact that this is just a thing that I have wanted to do. Derrick and I are reaching out to these companies to see if they're interested in coming on and talking to us. It is not a thing that they're doing. They're not reaching out to us. I just wanted to be really straightforward with that. So anyone that comes on is someone that we've reached out to just as an interest and just a true desire to figure out what is insert RPG here, and figuring out all of the new, interesting, and amazing things that are being made in what continues to be the absolute golden era of TTRPGs. Also, as you've heard many times before, and you will hear once again, both Derrick and I will be at a Catacon this year in Dayton, Ohio, from November 7th to November 9th. We'll both be there all 3 days. And we'll have a live DMB episode. We'll have Geek Wars. I'll probably do some karaoke. I'm running a couple games. I'll be on a different panel. So pretty much the whole weekend, that's all I'm doing. I will be in the Dayton Convention Center. And so if you see me, please stop me. Say hi. Derrick as well. I will see Derrick in person for the first time. But definitely, if you are at a Catacon, feel free to reach out to us in any way that you can so that we can meet up. But with that out of the way, let's head to the meat.
I'm starving. We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Why can't we have some meat?
The flake meat's back on the menu, boys.
And today, for the meat, we have a couple of awesome game designers to chat about the Cosmere RPG. We have Andrew Fischer, lead designer on Cosmere RPG, Meric Moir, plot weaver, RPG director, and GM for Skyhammer Press. Thanks for coming on DM's Block. Both of you were really excited to chat.
Yeah, excited to be here.
No, thanks for having us.
So before we jump into the nitty gritty of the system we're going to talk about today, we'd love to hear just a little bit about yourselves, maybe whatever you think the listeners might be interested in, and maybe some of the other cool stuff you've worked on.
Meric, do you want to start us off?
Sure. My resume is much shorter than Fisher's, who is a luminary in the industry.
Yeah, okay.
You are. Jeez. So, yes, I have been freelancing in TTRPGs for about 5 years now. I started doing the Expanse RPG. I've done some work on Star Trek Adventures and a whole bunch of stuff for Achtung Cthulhu. And feels like working on the Cosmere RPG was my big break. It actually allowed me to move away from a daytime corporate job and be hired full-time by Brotherwise Games earlier this summer. So this is living the dream for me.
Congrats. That's so awesome. I actually have the Expanse book back here. I'm going to have to find your name in it later. Yeah, very cool.
Perfect. Well, hilariously, so I've written a couple of things for them, and the only thing that's out is the PDF Traders and Smugglers.
Oh, okay.
Trades of the Expanse. And then a pair of adventures I've written are coming out in books at some point.
Cool.
So I have to ask so that I can make a friend feel bad, because this is what we can do on the podcast. So what did you write for Star Trek?
For Star Trek, I wrote the first adventure in the new second edition starter set.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I have a buddy that does a really elaborate AP, the GM Tim. It literally, the whole OBS setup looks just like the computer layout the entire time.
Oh,
it has like in between where he's gone into Star Trek Online, built the custom ship that they fly in the AP, so that when it's like goes to a break, it cuts to the ship like flying, like just like a commercial break would from the show.
Amazing.
So I have every intention of giving him a hard time about this. So
yeah, no, it was incredible working with them. I got to write that with Al Spader and Michael Dismuke, who are great writers, really fun people to collaborate and write with. And I'm really proud of how that starter set came out. It looks great. It's fun to play.
Nice. All right. And Andrew.
So I'm Andrew Fischer, lead designer on the Cosmere RPG. I've been in the industry for about 15 years now. I got my start working at Fantasy Flight Games on the Warhammer 40K RPGs as well, and then worked with Jay Little and the rest of the team on the Star Wars role-playing game. Did a couple others while I was there, like helped with Anima and End of the World and a couple other RPGs we did there. But then in the intervening time between that RPG work and now, I worked as a board game designer as well as the digital director at Fantasy Flight, overseeing kind of our app integrated board games like Mansions of Madness, Descent, those other ones that have kind of that app component with them. Now, in addition to leading the design on the Cosmere RPG, I'm the design director at this studio called Earthborn Games. We make a game, Earthborn Rangers, right there. That's this kind of cooperative adventure card game, and we make all of our games sustainably produced. So I do that in addition to Cosmere, and then upcoming, given Meric's title here, we're going to be working on Plotweaver next. So
very cool, very cool. Well, those are all some really cool games you've worked on. Hopefully we'll get a chance to play those, and maybe we'll hit you up an email and tell you what we liked and didn't like about them. But anyway, yeah, it sounds like you both have a wealth of experience. So I'm really excited to see kind of the unique points of view you brought to Cosmere RPG. The next question is is there anything right now that you're working on that you can tell us about that you're excited for?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we're working on a ton. So obviously the Stormlight component of the Cosmere RPG is coming out now. So we just did a digital release. The physical books are going to start fulfilling to people here momentarily. I think we've seen some appearing in the wild already.
I see it in your background right there.
Yeah, I've got it up on my shelf. We're, obviously we're working on that release. And then per our Kickstarter, the next big step in the Cosmere RPG is all of the Mistborn setting stuff. So we're going to have a standalone Mistborn rulebook, Mistborn world guide, all the same stuff. And that'll be coming out next year. So we are in the thick of that right now. We're just wrapping up editing on most of it. And then it's going into layout and all those kind of final stages to then go to printing to come out next year. So that's kind of what we're in the thick of. I don't know how much we can talk about what we have next, but we did allude to on the Kickstarter that we will be going to worlds beyond Roshar and Scadrial and like building out this line for the entire Cosmere. So, well, Meric and I are going to be working on Plotweaver, which is the system that runs the Cosmere RPG, and working on bringing that to New Horizons. Lydia, who is taking over lead on the design team for the Cosmere RPG, is going to be taking the Cosmere to worlds beyond. I don't know if we've announced exactly what our next planned worlds are, but we're just starting kind of that brainstorming and early design on that stuff.
Very cool.
What's super funny is I can definitely just edit in beeps and then it totally makes it feel like you told us, but then you really didn't. So perfect. That totally happened.
Yeah, that'll be great.
We don't want to get him in trouble with the PR people,
I never know, because like if Johnny is the guy who can, decide whether we say things or not. And if he's here, I'm sure he'd probably say more than we are willing to. But, without his thumbs up, we'll keep we'll just keep what we know has been shared with the public. Yeah.
Sure. That's safe. Play it safe.
I was just going to add and say, like, the really exciting thing for me personally that we're working on is that Mistborn stuff, because it also became the part where I really joined the team, where I was like a freelancer on Stormlight and really involved in having a lot of fun. But for the Mistborn World Guide writing, that's when this started kind of becoming a thing that I could do. And I got to be a Mistborn World Guide book lead starting this year. So seeing that come together has been pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, there's a difference between like having like a fingerprint like on a book and then like having a true hand in developing it.
Yeah, and all credit where credit is due. Lydia, who's taking over lead design going forward, was the original book lead for Mistborn World Guide. She passed the torch to me, and I'm continuing with that.
So our surprise question, and I feel like this may be a great one for like the kind of what is series. Well, I feel like I'll be remiss if I don't frame it this way. What is, but that's not good grammar because of the rest of this question, but that's okay. What are some games that you hope to play in this coming year that you haven't played? And it could be board games, it could be video games, it could be, TTRPGs, but just in general, like what's on your wish list of something that you want to check off?
I've got one right at the top of my list, which is the Arkham Horror RPG by Edge Studios, where I picked up the core book, I picked up the starter set, I picked up the big adventure box, and I'm just like, getting a group together, we'll do it over Halloween. I'm super pumped for that.
Yeah, shout out to Edge, Sam Gregor Stewart over at Edge. Their team did an awesome job. I used to work with a bunch of those folks, and I think they did a cool job on that system. Yeah, I was trying to think. So on the RPG side, I haven't played Triangle Agency yet, and I'd love to check that out. At Gen Con a few weeks ago, I picked up a solo RPG, Magus, or The Magus? The Magus. Comes with like a deck of like Oracle cards. It's it just struck me. I was at like the Indie Game Revolution table, and it was just very, very pretty. So I'm excited to check this out. It's kind of got that like Morkborg style, like magazine style layout. So I'm kind of interested in that.
It's crazy how the art is the thing that grabs you, right? Like evocative art and layout make so much of the game for me, which is funny. Like, I don't know, it's just easier to like when the art is so evocative, it's easy to see how cool it would be to play in that world or play that kind of game, right?
Oh, 100%, especially in like the, RPGs are this kind of storytelling medium. And so immersing yourself in the setting. And also I think like graphic design gets totally undervalued as a whole. There's like in design, there's the aesthetics usability principle where the more polished and beautiful a thing is, the more people will think it is easy to use. Even if like it is functionally identical mechanically, or like, if it's a phone UI, the buttons could be, their mechanics could be identical, but if it's prettier, people say it is easier to use. And similar, I think the same thing holds for a lot of like book layout and board game, UI design. So
I was just going to say, imagine going back to like Mage, the Ascension, the World of Darkness book that was in 3-column format with like 8-point font.
And the order is just like all over.
Yeah.
Oh man, those White Wolf games are a trip.
Incredible games, but
I was gonna say I played a lot of them.
Yeah, no, I loved them.
I was trying to think of games outside of RPGs. I did also a Gen Con pickup. I picked up Vantage, which is a board game by Stonemaier Games. It's this kind of cooperative it's like this open world adventure board game where you kind of drop on this planet and you kind of explore. I've only played one session of it. I think it can play up to like 6 people, but I think it plays best solo. So I've been kind of checking that out as well. I've definitely been I'm normally a big video game person, but I've been on more of a tabletop kick lately. I got my Switch 2 and I play some stuff with my kid, but I think a lot of my solo time's been going to tabletop games lately.
Nice. All right, Neal, what answers you got for us?
I'm say, I play way too much Fortnite because my kid enjoys it, and I'm like a crotchety old man when I play. Like, I don't want to build anything, and if I see that someone else built something, I shoot it down. But for board games, the one that like sticks out to me that I've started to play, but I want to expand it, so I guess it's a partial answer, is Everdell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I've really been like, we've had a really, really good time as a family playing the game. So then I've started to do a lot of research into like how people feel about the expansions. And so I really want to like see what that feels like, because that's always a very intriguing thing from like a design perspective. Obviously I won't do that when the kids are there, but like seeing what it looks like for somebody to say, hey, I have this really good game. What does it look like to expand, and how to make that successful without breaking it is always a very interesting thing. And I've always pulled a lot of design from it and then tried to move forward with it to say like, okay, this worked, this didn't. Hold on to both of those things when thinking about other design things that I want to do. From a video game perspective, I'm with you. Whatever my kid wants to play, I'll play it. And then from the TTRPGs, I just had somebody give me a bunch of DCC stuff, Dungeon Crawl Classic. Some of it is some of the really far out there stuff. So then I just want to dive into that and kind of see what that, again, same thing, just see what that approach feels like and see what I can bring into the games I'm already playing.
Nice. For me, I'll go quick. RPG is Cosmere RPG Easy. My friend Thomas has the PDF. He's running a group through it right now. They're recording their first session of their actual play. I'm excited for that. And I'm not going to watch any of it because I'm hoping to do Stonewalkers with him later. So no spoilers for Stonewalkers either, Meric. I know you wrote the thing, but
2 of the chapters, not the whole thing.
Yeah, just give us some overview when we get to that point. And then video game, I never have played Mass Effect. It's like a crime, I know. Everyone loves it. And so I have all 3. They're in my cupboard over here, and eventually I will get to those. And then
I was just going to say, Derrick, I have started Mass Effect maybe 6 times and never gotten more than 30 minutes in.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I've never even started it. So
what? Am I the only person who's played Mass Effect here?
Correct.
We found the weird group. Yeah.
Yeah. I know it's usually like a taboo to say that people are like, what? It's like, having not watched Star Wars or something where people just cannot fathom it.
Every intention of loving it. And as soon as I turn off the console, it disappears from my brain.
You're not hooked.
Yeah. I don't know why.
Interesting. Then board game, I played a little bit of this, but I want to keep playing it. It's called Thunder Road. I played it at my friend's house. Very Mad Maxy kind of race vibes. Super fun. I want to dig into it more and kind of noodle on the strategy a bit. I was way out in front, and then just all my cars blew up, and that was the end. So but yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I think that's how it goes. I think your cars usually blow up to some degree.
It is. And the problem was that I was the one in front. Anyway, cart before the horse kind of thing. But yeah, those are my answers. Sweet. So let's jump into talking about Cosmere RPG now. So for those listeners who are unfamiliar with the Cosmere in general, that is kind of the universe in which a bunch of these novels written by an author named Brandon Sanderson exist. I don't remember if it was Meric or Andrew mentioned a few of the planets that are kind of part of the games that they've written so far. But the unique part of Brandon Sanderson's universe is each of these planets kind of has different things happening, and they each have their own interesting magic systems and factions. And then sometimes there's factions that span across the Cosmere as well. But anyway, the fun part about the Cosmere RPG is, like Andrew was mentioning, the books that are coming out now, which is the Stormlight RPG, are going to be vastly different than the other rule sets that come out later next year, etc., for all of these different magic systems and different worlds. So it's kind of a daunting task. Like, I sat down before I'd read any of the book myself. I sat down and I thought, like, how would you design a system that's going to contain a bunch of these other systems, and they all have to kind of play together with each other eventually, because you're going to have people who are wanting to travel to different worlds and stuff once the rules are there. So yeah, it's quite a daunting task, but I'd love to know, like, how you both approached this huge world and all of this lore, and how you're able to even creating the rules for one system just for the Stormlight Archive books that you knew would be able to play well with other things.
Luckily, I've had a bit of experience working on games like this. So I mentioned I worked on the Star Wars role-playing game at Fantasy Flight, and we kind of separated that into these 3 game lines, one for the scum and villainy of the galaxy, one for the rebellion and the Empire, and then one for Jedi. And then we kind of expanded these 3 different lines and kind of expanded across the Star Wars galaxy in this pretty extensive role-playing line. So, I took a lot of the lessons we learned there and applied them as we approached this. A big important part of this is the modularity of the system. So a lot of the kind of fundamentals of the core of the system need to be universal enough to be able to apply to this wide array of settings. Because in addition to just being these different magic systems, one thing Brandon's been pretty clear about with the Cosmere, a lot of the books that exist right now are like fantasy books, right? They're kind of low technology, but and a lot of them are very isolated. You play on this planet, like you read the novel on this planet, and that's it.
Right.
And then his intention as he goes on is he's kind of bringing them together. And we've already kind of seen hints in his most recent books of kind of space age Cosmere as the timeline advances in these different books. And we see people, inventing spaceships and traveling the galaxy and meeting each other. And so we needed not only to cover all these different planets, but also technology levels from
True. I didn't even think about that.
Swords to spaceships and blasters.
Right.
So some of it is like knowing your scope when you start and kind of roughing in an outline for all these different parts and kind of making little vertical slices of the different types of things you're going to need. But then another big part is just modularity. Because we have these different planets, you'll see between the Stormlight RPG and the Mistborn RPG that comes out next year, you'll see that there's big chunks of kind of game systems that are modular and that come kind of with the planet. So these aren't like fundamental to the core systems. They're instead part of this. And so you can kind of pull these out and put them back in and only worry about them when you're at this planet. And then even though there are these modular parts, we try to operate on very kind of similar rules for each one. One thing Brandon talks a lot about is like, even though he has all these different magic systems, they're all based on like the kind of fundamental atomic elements of like how he has structured his magic system that he hasn't like publicly, like people try to kind of puzzle it apart, but he has these kind of fundamental elements or components that each one of his systems kind of use and mix and match in different ways. So we kind of identify a lot of those and then associate them with different game mechanics. So we know, on Scadrial, Mistborn, when a metal uses connection or fortune or these other parts of his setting, we know we can use our connection mechanics and pull those same things in. So that's a slightly rambling answer to say there's a lot of different things, but it's a lot of planning ahead and outlining and then modularity that helps.
Mm-hmm. I also want to tackle this question from the narrative side of things, which is where I sit most of the time. And I mean, relying on Brandon's ability to put Easter eggs into all of his settings is something that really benefits the game and something that we've tried to do from a writing perspective and a writing philosophy, where whenever we create something new or expand on something that already exists, we think about, does this break if a Radiant shows up or a Mistborn shows up? Does it work? And and narratively and story-wise. And sometimes breaking it is good. Like, that's going to be an interesting story. But we try to consider the fact that eventually, like you said, people are going to be mixing and matching these things. And we want to create interesting hooks and backdrops for all of those stories to be told. So anytime we're creating new lore or examples or suggestions or things like that, again, having that outline that Fischer talked about and taking that kind of wide view gives us a richer game that's something that you can experience fully if you just want to play Mistborn, but will give you that extra Brandon Sanderson spice if you mix and match a little.
Yeah, that's another thing I hadn't really thought about, but the fact that you could have various people playing various different kinds of these invested, magic users in these different worlds too, right? Oh, it's just, I mean, I'm glad that you didn't have too much trouble with it, Andrew, because I feel like I'd spend a few days just spinning my wheels, like trying to make this outline you're talking about, and forgetting all of these things that could come up. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I won't say there wasn't too much trouble. We're just getting done with editing on Mistborn, which has, there's like 16 metals plus all the guy metals. And then that's an allomancy and ferrochemy. So we have to design up close to 40 different metallic arts just to cover allomancy and ferrochemy on Scadrial. Right. Like, all of these have like trees that players can choose from. It's a lot. It's definitely intimidating. And, you know, we do a lot to, you know, we have these touch points of our levels and tiers to make sure that we're balancing it to some degree. And, you know, it's not just that sometimes these might play together, but like ultimately that's kind of where the Cosmere is headed, is this space age where all of these different people from different planets are playing together. So that's, we knew, you know, we that needed to function in this game because that's where the Cosmere is headed. But I think, Meric, you hit the nail on the head with your comment about breaking things, which is like, you know, one of the questions we often get is like, how do you balance all this? And we do balance it to some degree, but like there's things in those books that aren't balanced. And some of our job is to make a game that's fun. We don't want something that's unfun, but part of our job is also to accurately represent the stories that they're telling. Mm-hmm. And so there are things in the game that just like aren't like, it's not chess, you know. There's going to be things that are powerful or weak because they're just powerful or weak in the setting, you know.
It's an interesting design challenge when you're writing adventures, because at a certain point on Roshar, people get shard blades. Right. And suddenly a locked door doesn't matter. And like it, just considering that alongside your scaling it's an interesting puzzle. It's still something you got to consider.
Right. They can climb any surface. They can, you know, cut through any wall. They can, like it's just, But, you know, to your points, both, it's the stories are about heroic people doing heroic things. And so eventually it gets to a point where it isn't going to be balanced and they're going to be able to do this really cool thing and, you know, pull off the victory or whatever it might be. And that's part of the fun that everyone wants to have, is they want to feel that power.
Well, you have to think, all it takes is one. All it takes is one player asking one question, and all of these things become a factor. Because just one player saying, hey, can I do this? And everything we've talked about is everything that a person running the game has to start processing. The other thing that you brought up, Andrew, was you mentioned levels and tiers. Mm-hmm. That's always a very interesting perspective from any RPG, especially when you refer to tiers. So like, could you dive a little bit more in on like what either both leveling looks like for the system, and especially what tiers, like what you feel tiers look like for the system?
One thing that was really important as we struck out designing this game was to kind of keep it familiar to a lot of like the current tabletop RPG audience. We wanted, you know, the Cosmere fan base is very broad, and we wanted to make sure that those people who enjoyed RPGs and enjoyed the Cosmere were going to like feel at home here. So there are touch points here that are going to be similar to like D&D, since that's what has brought a lot of people into the hobby over the last decade. So there's kind of two types of progression in our system. One is your kind of traditional levels. And so this is where that kind of level and tier comes in. Every level, you're going to get a talent. You get to go into our talent trees and choose the next talent you want. And so that's going to give you kind of, and every few levels, some of your attributes go up. This is going to give you that kind of linear progression. And so we've got you can kind of keep leveling up forever. There's world hoppers who just keep on exploring the Cosmere. The leveling kind of follows this like, you know, kind of logarithmic curve, and you get very incremental bonuses at a certain point, right? So like you grow pretty rapidly early on, and then it kind of tapers off as you level up. So to kind of keep with that touch point of D&D, there's about 20 levels that meaningfully progress through the narratives we often see in Brandon's books. So like Stormlight Archive 1 through 5, Mistborn 1 through 3, as well as Era 2, book 1 through 4. These characters kind of follow these arcs, and we follow those kind of power levels. And so we divided it roughly into 4 tiers, every 5 levels. And we use those tiers to kind of create touch points for the types of stories GMs should be telling, as well as the types of adversaries and challenges they should be throwing at players. This is because with our really free form advancement, where you can kind of go all over the place and pick whatever talents you want, we've got these what are called paths that are these talent trees, and they're very open. You can pursue one path and get really good at one thing, or you can kind of branch out and select all sorts of things. And this means that we don't have how good you are as you progress at combat versus conversations versus exploration is going to be pretty variable based on what you and your character choose to focus on. So because of that, we abstracted challenges and types of experiences into these broad tiers to help the GM target it. But you're not going to be doing like specific calculation of how many characters are at this level to figure out like, this is not a like combat simulator that is tuned to that degree, you know. Well, I'm kind of pontificating on this. I mentioned our other form of progression. So in addition to our levels, we have what are called goals and rewards. And so players can take on, or characters can take on goals. This might be earning a shard blade in a duel. This could be bonding your spren on Roshar, magical beings that people build relationships with to get their magical powers. That explanation will probably make some Cosmere people mad at the oversimplification and other people confused, but that's...
Sorry, this isn't a lore podcast.
Hit right in the middle. Yeah.
I don't think we have time to dive into that.
So you can take on these goals, and then as you pursue them, you check off progress with the GM, and at the end, you get a reward. It might be the reward you're working towards, or sometimes it was the friends along the way. But regardless, you'll get these rewards, and these are different, potentially powerful pieces of loot in the case of a shard blade, or it could be a powerful patron or other story benefit. And so in that way, you kind of progress both through your traditional leveling, but also through this kind of more story and narrative driven unlocking of different things.
Yeah.
You did a good job to help segue my next question. Like this whole time I've been trying to rack my brain about how to specifically ask this question. I will also preface that it is a careful question, and I understand I'm probably going to ask something you're not going to be able to answer fully, and that's okay. But I feel like with the Cosmere system, you're going to be afforded to do something that other systems don't, in the sense that you have both the narrative and the mechanical working together in a way that most systems don't. If you think of a lot of systems, there's not a narrative necessarily. They're intrinsic, yeah, maybe, and maybe you have characters that stand out as like the forefront of a class, and like people know who they are and they see the art. And I think about D&D and all the novels that were written, but there is a heavy hand when editions would happen and the rules would change, and what they would do for the novels is just hit them hard, because they have to change the way that things fundamentally work in the world, because that's the way the rules changed. So they have to come up with some way that it works, like the spell plague or the sundering, or just the gods walked around for a while. It's fine, because we messed with the portfolio. We fixed it. But like, that's the way it was resolved, and it all worked out in the end. And, you know, as with every set of novels, some are great, some are not. That's how this all works. But it's very interesting to think about the idea that this is hand in hand. I don't know how to ask this question without asking for too much information, but like, is this kind of a back and forth? Like, are there going to be like Easter eggs being able to be put into the RPG? And like, in a way, is it going to go back? I don't see a way it doesn't go back and forth, I guess, is where I end up with my thought process of this, all the effort that you guys are putting into this. There's no way some of this doesn't lead towards something from the books. And obviously the books are coming back into the RPG. And it's really exciting to see what that looks like long term, to have something be able to do that.
So the Cosmere RPG, very much from the beginning, was marketed as a canon RPG. Stonewalkers is a story that Brandon Sanderson and Dan Wells wrote, and we adapted into an adventure. And everything that we write in our world guides and our handbooks and our adventures goes to Dragonsteel for a very thorough review and continuity edit. And they're incredible. They're great to work with, and they're very sharp. They catch any little thing that won't match. And they also give us a lot of interesting leeway to play with things and create new things. It's all under their oversight, but to, talk about your question, I certainly hope that some of the things that we've developed in partnership with them will show up eventually in Brandon's works. We don't know, but we can hope.
Yeah.
There are definitely parts where, he'll kind of give us, there's parts where he has plans for them. And then there's other parts where he's just like, oh yeah, you guys can play and invent some stuff. And and he said to us, he's basically like, if I think it's rad, I'll use it in the future. I mean, if he doesn't think it's rad, it doesn't make it in the book. But, he's like, if I don't, it'll just be there. Right. But so there's definitely things that we've contributed that'll kind of come back around, I am sure. It's one of the cool things about working with Brandon is, he met with us and like worked with us and offered suggestions. We got to kind of sit down with him and go back and forth on different ideas and how to approach different things. It might sound basic, but like that's something not a lot of TTRPGs are often afforded from licensors. Like, so I've worked with George R. R. Martin, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, and Martin before the HBO show. Martin definitely was had a lot more time for these kind of things. But generally, I'll say that working with these licensors, you're often kind of working through some licensing agent who submits things for approval, and you're never going to directly talk to the creators. So with Brandon being able to like sit down with him and get his ideas on things like at the early brainstorming stages is pretty awesome, and like has allowed us to have a bit more of a conversation with this game, which is cool. And like it's something that he has said he intends for this game to continue growing as he releases books into the future. So I won't say that the RPG is going to cause any sundering level events, but Brandon might do a sundering to himself, and then we'll make a book about it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I'm glad to hear that. And honestly, to me, it just solidifies that like the game, it's something that he's excited about, and that, it's important to him that it's done well and done right, instead of it just being, cash grab or whatever you could call it. Sure, here's take the license, do whatever. Yeah, I feel like that makes me appreciate it that much more.
I do want to say that, like, just shouting out Dragonsteel in every Dragonsteel being Brandon Sanderson's publishing company, in every interaction I've had with them, they've been very collaborative and very interested in the perspectives that the RPG team brings, because we're bringing a lot of different voices and a lot of different ideas. And I've always gotten the sense that they're very excited for that they want to see even more depth added to the Cosmere on top of the incredible depth that Brandon already brings to it. Right. And it's just a cool way to work.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, long term, there's nothing stopping you from making a world that didn't exist.
True. Why not? There's still some blanks in like the grid of.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah.
There's definitely some blanks to be filled. So let's talk about like the first time GMs picking up the book, picking up Stonewalkers, and let's talk about like the design and the thought process that went into making sure that it was friendly to run. You mentioned already, Andrew, like you put a lot of work into making sure that people who are familiar with tabletops already will jump in and kind of have some touch points. But yeah, like what other kind of intentionalities were behind that from a writing perspective, from a design perspective, making sure that people, that the game was accessible, but also, deep enough and crunchy enough that longtime fans will be able to do all the cool stuff that they want to.
I think there's a lot of really good entry points for somebody coming into this game. So you mentioned Stonewalkers, of course, a lovely epic campaign that goes across 7 chapters, so 7 levels of play. We also have the starter set, which comes with, quick start rules, pre-made characters, and a self-contained adventure. But we also did something called the First Step, which is its own kind of like a session 0 adventure. It's a level 0 adventure where you sit down, you don't need to know the world, you don't need to know the rules. You just have a blank character sheet and a GM who kind of knows what they're doing. And you can, by the end of that game, and I've run it in about 2 hours, by the end of that game, you have a fully built character, a backstory, and you understand the base mechanics of the game. Plus, it sets you up to say, like, you probably are going to pick this Radiant path going forward. And if you want to, you can use it as a prologue to then step into Stonewalkers. I got to co-write that one with Senfun Lim, and it's a blast. It's a really cool thing to play. I've played it Like I've play tested it with friends. I ran it for my kids, and it's a good one. I think it's a great entry point.
I'm excited because I'm sure that's what I'll start with. I'm pretty sure that's what my friend is doing right now with his group. Right, they're building their characters.
And there's a solo mode for it. There's a free solo mode for it on the
Oh,
website.
really?
Yeah.
Oh, to like build your own character
Yeah.
kind of thing?
So you can just play through that solo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's smart. That way people want to jump in right away. You can say, sure, here, do this on your own time. Here's your fun homework. Yeah. I like it a lot.
Yeah, and within the system itself as well, one nice thing about Stormlight, about Roshar as our starting setting, is that the magic progression is, because of the nature of how Brandon built this magic system, where you need to meet a spren, kind of build this bond with it over time before you have access to a lot of the magic powers in the setting. You have to start off, if you're starting at level 1, you have to start off as what we call a heroic character, which is choosing from paths, basically classes that are non-invested, so non-magical. So you have to start that way, and then you kind of slowly build this relationship over time. This allowed us to kind of stage some of the complexity of both the system and the world as your character levels up, so that you don't actually have to look at a lot of the magic system rules when you first start off. That being said, it's an intimidating setting. As you joked earlier, we need multiple podcasts just to get you all caught up on the lore, So
yeah,
it is intimidating, and that's why we spent so much time and effort creating those different resources Meric talked about there. Is like, we knew we wanted different ways for people to kind of slowly onboard, not only to our system, but also to the world and the lore. So we knew we wanted resources beyond just the core books.
I got into the series a while ago, but I had a few friends who were trying to get me into it, right? And I started, and then I'd say, hey, I have a question about this. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, you have to read this other, 1,000-page book to answer those questions. Oh, okay. And then I'd get to another spot, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, you got to read this other book for that, like, one line that you read in that book. And anyway, it is quite complex, but for people who like the complexity, there's a huge payoff for sure.
Certainly, I think Brandon has kind of figured that out when he did the secret project. So like Tress of the Emerald Sea is such a good on-ramp to the Cosmere, where it's a lovely self-contained story that hints at the big world around it, but isn't 7 books of Mistborn or 5 door stoppers of Stormlight.
Literally doorstop. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. I mean, you can see it back there. It's huge.
Yeah.
It's like 5 feet away from me. Yeah.
No, it's nothing. Anyone that has not yet gone or does not know about the YouTube channel called Nerd Forge, go there. You think the version you have is a door stopper.
And this is just the paperback,
It's a door. Nothing. When they're done, it's just a door. I'm going to leave it there. Yeah, go check out Nerd Forge and check out their versions of the books.
This is the woman who rebinds books in those like really beautiful. Yeah. And
then she did the one where there was the Wheel of Time
and
an actual wheel. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes.
I haven't seen that one. I've got to check that one.
Oh man.
I've seen the Stormlight once, but
someone sent me one of those recently. It was good stuff, like a video. Anyway, so yeah, let's talk about your favorite parts of the work you've done so far. Again, that you can tell us about. We'll start with you, Meric. What's been your favorite thing playing in this world, writing all of these amazing stories?
I'll cheat and give 2 answers because, of course, I have to talk about Stormlight. Stormlight is why we're here. It's coming out. It's great. I also have to talk about Mistborn because it was my first Cosmere love, and it's the book that I got to lead. But for Stormlight, I think my favorite thing was writing the 3rd adventure in Stonewalkers, where we get to go to a very iconic location from the books, and I got to figure out what it would look like to walk through that as a player.
Right.
And just immersing myself in that area and in Roshar was a very, very amazing experience. For Mistborn, I gotta say, working on the culture and the community for Koloss Blooded was the coolest thing ever, because we don't get to see much of them on screen in Era 2. And so we kind of came to Dragonsteel with a tentative plan saying, hey, we've got these cool ideas. We'd like to flesh them out. Is that possible? And they said, yeah, go for it. And we got to do some very interesting, fun things with Koloss Blooded that I'm very proud of and can't wait to get in print.
Oh man, gotta wait, gotta be patient.
Yeah, next year.
I mean, you know what's going down, but the rest of us have to wait. Yeah.
I think my favorite moment probably comes from designing the surges in Stormlight, the surges being kind of the magic that people can use on this planet. More so than some of the other magic systems, they really broadly use some of those kind of fundamental atomic forces I was talking about earlier. And some of them are very well defined. We see them a lot on screen, on page.
Yeah.
And then some aren't. Some we only see bits and pieces of. We definitely saw more of them in his 5th novel that he was writing while we were working on this book. But we hadn't seen everything, but we wanted to, and Dragonsteel wanted us to build out all of the different surge options for people to play in this book. And so some of it, was talking with Brandon and him giving us some details on what it could and could not do that isn't really shown on the page. But then working with Ross Leiser, who's one of our design team, we designed all these different, we would kind of look at some of the different surges and the fundamental forces they use and start kind of guessing and extrapolating as to things that they could do, right? Like based on other things we see in the Cosmere and just based on our own kind of creativity and how we mash these together. And as I mentioned earlier, some of those, Brandon was like, absolutely not, that does not work. But it was always very rewarding when, you come back to the author with your theories about this and he goes, oh yeah, that could totally work. And, sometimes he kind of says it like, oh, that was totally something I was planning and you figured it out. Or like, and then, sometimes he thinks about it for a second and goes, you know what, actually that would work. And so it's kind of neat not only to kind of pick apart his own systems and iterate back at him about them, but also like when it's kind of evolving his own understanding of them, it was just very rewarding and satisfying, which was cool. So people will see some of that in some of the surges that we don't see as much as in the books. You'll see some abilities that go a little bit beyond that. And those are the ones we worked with Brandon on. And that was really fun.
Nice.
One of the most fun questions we have is, because we frame it as the term homework, but what would be your best piece of advice if someone wanted to kind of take the next step to learn more about the Cosmere RPG? Like, where could they go? Like, is it videos? Obviously there's a few books they could read, but is there like other places that we could point them to learn more?
Yeah, like how many books? We have 11 books of it's way more than 11. How many Cosmere? 17?
12,
yeah.
13, 14. I mean, there's no way. Like, I can't count.
There's quite a few.
Yeah, there's a lot.
But I guess to learn more about the Cosmere RPG, I should have had. You guys warned us that there'd be homework, and I don't have the URL ready. You can head to the Brotherwise website to learn more about the RPG. It's currently already digitally available, and so you can get the books on DriveThruRPG, build your characters on Demiplane. To your point about videos, we have some videos out now, and we're going to be releasing a few more videos that kind of show off some of the basics of the system on Brotherwise's YouTube channel. So you can go there and kind of check out us talking a little bit about some of the very basic things. And then, of course, we've got our sizzle reel trailer on our Kickstarter page if you want to go back and check that out as well. What else, Meric? Where else can people find out about the game?
If you want to see people playing it, there are actual plays out right now. And a year ago when we were doing the Kickstarter, Fischer played in a game that I ran where we saved a hog from an evil fused overseer who was going to eat it. The hog was named High Prince Sadius. And that silly one shot ended up becoming an official adventure that's in Stormlight Scenarios coming out in September.
Nice.
And so there are sponsored actual plays coming. There are ones that came out with the Kickstarter last year. And certainly I've been in touch with people who are going to be putting out more. So if you just want to see it played to kind of figure out, is this something that I want to try? There are resources and so many videos of people doing reviews already that I love looking through and watching, because generally they're saying very kind things. So
yeah, it's a slippery slope, but I'm glad that you get mostly good out of it.
Yeah. In addition to our silly old one shot, I think a good representation of the game. The high rollers did a one shot actual play, I think, right alongside our Kickstarter, and that's a really good place if you're curious to watch a session, watch the game unfold. Go check out their game.
Nice.
Yeah, high production values, excellent acting and GMing. The high rollers did a great job. We, as the developers of the game, just went on and had a little fun being like, look at us playing the game we made.
Right. Speaking of playing with the developers, though, I know you have run games at conventions. At least I know you have, Meric. I watched a few videos of interviews with you talking about convention games. Are you planning on running any more convention games in the coming few months of the system at all? Or is Brotherwise going to be at any conventions people can go check out?
Yeah, we are going to be at Dragonsteel Nexus in Salt Lake City. I personally will be at the Edmonton Expo in the next couple of weeks, but I won't be running games. I'll just be wandering around, chatting with people. Cool. So I don't know. If you're in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada at the Edmonton Expo, you might see me there.
All right.
We do Dragonsteel Nexus, and we run some games there. In fact, we're running a big I shouldn't say we're running. A game store out there runs this big event there, a big mega game, and they're using the system for it. I forget how many players, Meric, but it's a lot.
It's 100 players.
100 players.
Is it the folks from
We Geek Together?
Yes, We Geek Together. Sweet. We've had Andy on the show before, actually. Cool. I've been to the two of his world record games that he's run out of his store too. It's been pretty fun. The store is in a mall, and the mall lets him just like do whatever. So he's done 2 events where like over 1,000 people showed up to all play in one giant battle scenario.
Yeah, he was mentioning that to us a couple of years ago. That sounds awesome.
It is a lot of fun. You got like 100 or probably like 200 people all chanting, like who are all part of one section. Like I was DMing the section that was trying to protect the wall of the city, and all the players were standing there going, wall. I don't know. It was electric. It was so much fun.
My favorite part every time this story comes up is someone just trying to buy shoes and has no clue what's going on. It's just like, I just needed a new pair of shoes, and it's just 200 people shouting about a wall, and I don't know anything about what's going on.
We got a lot of confused looks. There were more than a few people who like tapped me on the shoulder, and they're like, "What are you doing?"
We're taking over this mall.
It was a good time.
Well, luckily at Dragonsteel Nexus, you're amongst a whole convention of nerds, so it's a little less conspicuous. And then after Dragonsteel Nexus, I think like the main show we run a lot of games at is Gen Con. So we do ticketed events each Gen Con, run full sessions. So I know that one just happened. So a year from now, you guys can folks can show up and play some games with us.
Cool. I was on the fence about coming to Nexus, but if you two are going to be there, I might come through. That could be fun.
A whole bunch of the team will be there.
Yeah. I know at least one of my friends. I keep mentioning him, Thomas. He'll be on an episode before this. He'll probably be there, and my neighbor who I talk with about the books too, he'll probably be there. I should talk to him. Anyway, cool. Maybe we'll meet in real life.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That'd be great.
Yeah, definitely say hi if you end up coming.
Okay, I think that's it for homework, right, Neal? Oh, can I think of anything? I mean, Andrew joked about reading the books, but I feel like you should if you can. If you can't afford to read the books, or you're like me and you're just really cheap, I use the Libby app, and I just got a library card at my local library, and I check out the audiobooks. And sometimes I only have 2 weeks to get through, 60 hours worth of audiobook. It may or may not work out for you. Your mileage may vary, but that's a great way to get into it if you haven't already and you're interested.
Yeah, what book would we recommend that people start with who want to get into the Cosmere?
There's a lot of different reading orders. It's more contested than the Star Wars watching order. Like, man,
because there's so much variety and a lot of them are entry level, it really just comes down to what you like to read. If you like to read heroic fantasy, go Stormlight.
Yeah.
If you want very fairy tale-ish, Princess Bride-ish, go Tress. And if you like heists, go Mistborn. If you just want to dive right into the deep end with something weird, start with the Sunlit Man.
Don't start with the Sunlit Man. Don't.
You would lack a lot of context.
Meric's three other recommendations were great.
Elantris was the first book he wrote, so that that could be a good starting spot. Some people don't like it as much. Warbreaker. Anyway, there's
honestly, Sunlit Man is there for the people who enjoy chaos. If you want to suffer, start there. Yeah.
Yeah, good luck.
Perfect.
Well, Andrew and Meric, thank you so much. I can say with confidence that we will definitely have to have you on again so we can chat Mistborn when that is impending. It'll be a ton of fun. But until then, thanks so much for coming on and chatting with us about Stormlight and about Cosmere RPG et al.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you very much.
We just want to thank Andrew and Meric again for coming on, spending some time with us, and answering the question, what is the Cosmere RPG? If you're excited about the Cosmere RPG or the other things that are coming out for it, including Plotweaver or Mistborn or, and you want to tell us about it, you can always email us at dungeonmasterblock@gmail.com. And of course, if you head over to Apple Podcasts or your podcatcher of choice, leave us a rating or review. It'll make me happy. I'll smile. Even if I didn't know that you did it, I'll just smile randomly walking on the streets. I know I will. And of course, if you head over to your social media of choice, you can always find us at DMS_block. That's DM's block. The Dungeon Masters Block is a proud member of the Block Party Podcast Network, where you can check out other shows like Dungeons and Dragons and Daughters, The Bad Venture Club, and more. But as always, we just want to thank you, the listener, for listening to the Dungeon Masters Block, the place where we come to talk about the Dungeon Master, the most important person in the game, the only person capable of playing gods, killing characters, and lowering the egos of everyone else at the table. I'm DM Neal. Good night, good luck, and keep on dungeon mastering.
It's not inspiration, it's not wisdom, and it's bad advice.
Before starting any Cosmere RPG, you will need a book report from each of your players on all books. All of them. And depending on their grade, is whether or not they will actually be able to join the table. There's a rubric that you can set up. This is a great idea.
Goodbye.